In the 2023 Netflix series Beef, created by Lee Sung-jin, Steve Yeun and Ali Wong play main protagonists Danny Cho and Amy Lau, who are at odds with each other in a twisting tale of revenge and bitterness that threatens both of their lives. In this video, we'll look at how the first season of the series writes empathetic story beats for its anti-hero protagonists, especially in one episode revealing more of their backstories. Per usual, there will be spoilers for the story of Beef, so I recommend checking it out before proceeding further. As a general story overview, the series kicks off with a road rage incident in Los Angeles between Danny Cho and Amy Lau that quickly spiral out of control. Both characters are trapped in different circumstances with their lives. Danny struggles to make financial ends meet, working as a general contractor, servicing homes while trying to support his younger brother Paul and build a home for their parents. Meanwhile, Amy seeks to sell off her business while juggling the pressures of raising her young daughter with her artist husband who lives in the shadow of his celebrity artist's father. The series focuses on themes of revenge and unforgiveness, but it also grasps at an existential sense of being emotionally, mentally, and spiritually lost in the mess of lives spinning out of control. Both Danny and Amy are portrayed as complicated, flawed protagonists who do despicable things to each other and to the loved ones around them. They act selfishly and sometimes sabotage their own desires through their impulsive behavior. We learn that Danny prevented his younger brother Paul from going to college by throwing his college application letters into the trash years ago. Later on, we discover a fire that burned down the house that Danny bought for his parents, and that was caused by his own faulty wiring. For Amy, she catfishes Paul in order to get back at Danny, while also emotionally pushing her husband George away, eventually leading to a rift between them. So in a later episode, after we've seen several misguided exploits from both protagonists, we get to see more of Danny and Amy's earlier years as children and teenagers that help us see them in a different light. The series creates these empathetic story beats and flashbacks to flesh out a more complex portrait for both characters. For Amy, we see her as a young woman engaging in a casual hookup with a stranger she met online, and then she sees a bizarre hook-nosed woman in the mirror's reflection, in place of where Amy should be. Years earlier, we see Amy as a teenager catching her father engaging in an affair with an unidentified woman. For a brief moment, the woman turns to Amy and she sees the same hook-nosed figure from before. And then we go into Amy's childhood years where we see her reading a picture book with the illustration of a witch character resembling the bizarre hook-nosed woman. In some ways, the mysterious figure is a figment of Amy's imagination, and it's a symbol of trauma and pain that has haunted her for many years. In the memory with the children's storybook, Amy as a child actually is confronted by the hook-nosed woman who tells her that she won't tell Amy's secrets because no one would love her. As a painful memory, this encounter sticks with Amy as she grows older, likely affecting her ability to open up vulnerably to others. For Danny, we see him as a baby being doted on by his parents. In another memory, we see him as a child being bullied by other school kids in the playground. We also see him and Paul as kids overhearing their parents discussing financial troubles. And a young Danny tries to come up with plans that will make things easier for his family. When he and Paul are laying in bed going to sleep, Danny suggests that Paul study hard so he can skip 3 grades, and so they will be in the same grade together. Years later, in another flashback, we see Danny and Paul as young adults working around their parents' motel. This is also when we see Danny tossing out Paul's college application letters, interfering with Paul's plans. In these series of flashbacks for Amy and Danny, we see more of the full spectrum of their lives. We see how they started and what traumatic events influenced their paths. It helps us as the audience to see beyond who they are in the present day as 2 adults raging against each other in one revenge plot after another. Without these memory flashbacks as story beats, it might have been harder to accept Danny and Amy as more fully rounded human characters, given the shenanigans they engage in as grown adults. So in using brief flashback sequences revealing how Danny and Amy both were more vulnerable characters in their youth, marred by trauma and hardship, the series paints a more detailed portrait of them, suggesting that we don't really always know what's going on underneath the surface of the people we meet. It's an effective way to take these anti-hero characters and let us see more under their mask, to give us a sense of what they really want as core needs. We could postulate that Danny wants to provide for and make things better for his family, thereby validating his purpose and his self-worth. Meanwhile, we could argue that Amy wants to be truly seen and heard by others, but struggles to open up due to past hurts and a lack of trust. These deeper investigations into their characters makes them more compelling to watch as the series progresses.